What is going on, you guys? I want to talk to you today about the lack of Armada news. It's basically been something that's starting to become borderline toxic, I think, in the Armada community right now. And why I don't think you should be worried, I think it's all going to be worth the wait. So basically, if you're unfamiliar with what's going on with Star Wars Armada right now, I can summarize it by saying not much. There hasn't been any news for Star Wars Armada, and it's fine from a certain point of view. It seems that they have kind of slowed down production from where they were a few years ago with a lot of their games, X-Wing included. And this all was fine up until the hyperspace report a few weeks ago, because we were all expecting that, you know, this is summertime. It's like the time they announce new stuff. Over the holidays, we were fine. You know, during spring we were fine, and now we're in summer. Well, I don't know if we're technically in summer yet, but either way, we're in second quarter, approaching third quarter, and we're ready for news, because Wave 7's been out for a few months now, and we've had plenty of time with no updates. And while once upon a time that wasn't such a big deal, now it's starting to become a big deal, just because people are worried, especially with this recent news that Asmodee might be selling, and people are like, what does this mean? And that means nothing right now. Until there's some kind of deal and some kind of details come out, we don't know anything about that right now. So what's going to happen is business is going to proceed as usual until such time that something warrants a change. So there's nothing for we worried about from that aspect right now. But more importantly, when the hyperspace report came out and it was announced that this was going to be the future of our Star Wars products, and it was only X-Wing 2.0, that's when people started to worry. Because every other game right now, except with the exception of like the CCG, which has been, or the LCG rather, which has been canceled, has something in the future. You know, X-Wing has X-Wing 2.0. Legion has a ton of stuff, and they're still announcing stuff. Granted, Legion's it's going to probably be this way for its whole first year. Eventually, Legion will kind of slow down once there's a big enough wealth of things. This is what Armada suffered from in its infancy. But Destiny's got another expansion set coming out, and even Destiny's, like, in its second year now, is starting to have some problems. But they do have another wave coming out, and all of their games have more stuff coming out. Imperial Assault, even, the one everybody was sure was dead, now has another wave coming out. So Armada is now the only game without news on the horizon. But what do we know? Well, first off, I want to take us back a little bit. If you've been playing Armada for a while, or maybe if you haven't, I'll give you a little history lesson. Armada had a pretty bad period after Wave 2. So when Armada was first announced, you know, there was a lot of hype. Some people weren't sure. I wasn't sold on it until I actually played it. So I was kind of on the fence with Armada, because I figured I already have little plastic spaceships for X-Wing. Why do I want another plastic spaceships game? Until I realized I liked the gameplay of Armada even more than I liked the gameplay of X-Wing. And then I loved X-Wing, so that tells you how much I really was impressed with Armada. But you know, to get kind of people hyped, they announced Wave 2 for Armada pretty early, like before the core set even came out. Wave 2, which was the Imperial Star Destroyer and the Home 1, you know, the most iconic ship, was spoiled before the core set came out. It was actually at that point that I was so impressed with the way it looked that I said, okay, I'm on board. And so I decided to go ahead and get a copy of the core set when it came out. So we had Armada finally launch. We had all these products. We had all of the core set Wave and Wave 1, which was already announced and was, like, you know, on the boat at that point in time. And then we had Wave 2, which had just been spoiled, which was still kind of like in development. And so then Armada comes out. We start playing it. You know, I picked up 2 core sets right away to have a slightly bigger game, because Armada suffered from one thing, which was it came out with just the core set. So all you could play was tiny games. You had no diversity at all, which kind of stunk. It was great just to teach you the game, but you still had to wait a little while until Wave 1 hit. Then Wave 1 comes out. Now you can play games. Granted, there's not much build diversity. There's only 2 ships for the Empire. Then Wave 2 comes out. Now when Wave 2 comes out, now this game is starting to get interesting. There's still not much diversity, though. But we have, like, the big, we have our large ships. We've got our Home 1. We've got our ISD. you had the Raider, which wasn't very good. So the Empire was still kind of hurting in Wave 1 and 2. Because really all you had for the Empire was Rhymer Balls and maybe an ISD and a Gladi. You had the Demolisher, which was always good. You had ISDs, which were pretty good. But you didn't have that much great stuff. Not that many options with the Empire. Because the Rebels had more ships, and all of their ships were at least, had a use. I don't think the Raider was very good when it first came out. It's great now. But, and then you had a whole year with no news. I think you had like 13 months before they announced Wave 3. So you had this huge lull from when they first spoiled Wave 2 to when they first spoiled Wave 3 was over a year if memory serves. I'm not doing the math. It might even be more than 13 months. But it was a long time. It was so long people were saying up and down that Armada was dead. And that's where the joke kind of came out of. The problem was I actually stopped playing for a while because so many months with only a handful of viable build options was rough. I don't mind for a game to slow down production, but it has to slow down once you've got some diversity in your meta, and so you're not just playing the same thing every time. Now, fast forward to today. We have a similar type of slowdown. It's not quite as bad as it was, because if you'll recall, last year at Gen Con, which was August 2017, they did not even spoil Wave 7 yet. They told us something big was coming for Armada, so they gave us a little hint. It was like, hey, we haven't forgotten about you, and that was nice. Although at Gen Con, we kind of expect a preview. And then I think it was about the following month they revealed Thrawn and Wave 7. Everybody thought that was the something big, but then Andrew Navarro said that wasn't the something big. Like basically at the Gamma trade show a few months ago, it was asked, was that the something big, or is something big still coming? Because some people felt like underwhelmed because the Empire just got like a reprint of a ship it already had. So the Empire was already down a ship. The Rebels have now a lot more ships than the Empire does from a certain point of view, which arguably is understandable. I actually like the idea of having different versions of ISD because the Empire's got loads and loads of ISDs. So I understand all of that. But he said, yeah, there's something big coming, and that's all I can say. And this is at the Gamma trade show this year. So basically that told everybody that no, Wave 7 was not the something big for Armada. So what makes now better than that first lull that Armada had is a couple of things. First off, there is something big still coming. All right, we have basic confirmation of that. I have no idea what that is, what that could mean. That could mean a number of things, and I can just guess. I have no idea. All I have is guesses, and my guesses are probably about the same as yours. I've got three main guesses. A, Super Star Destroyers, right? Huge, right? There. B, Clone Wars factions. Or B, sequel factions. Any of those could work. I think sequel factions might be the most likely now because of Resistance that's coming out. Although for the longest time I could have sworn it was. I still think Super Star Destroyers are on the way because we don't have Piet yet. And he would come with the Executor because that's where he is. It just makes sense. However, I really want Clone Wars factions also. There's a lot of things that I want. I actually want 6 factions for Armada at some point, especially if they're going to slow down the release schedule for all the Empire and the Rebellion. I would love to have, the CIS and the Old Republic as separate factions, and then also come out with the Resistance and the First Order once this show Resistance kicks off and we have a wealth of more ships. And I think all of those things are possible contenders. Outside of those 3 things, I'm not sure what else something big could be unless it's something along the lines of a fundamental change, like increasing the point limit to 500, which would be great, but I'd be disappointed if that didn't also come with a new wave. I would like for there to be, like the FAQ they came out with recently was pretty big in that it had some impact. It fixed a lot of the problems we had with the game. But, so, that's my first point of why we shouldn't worry, is we know something big is coming. My second point of why we shouldn't worry is the game's in a great place right now. I mean, did you look at Worlds? There was so much list diversity at Worlds. Granted, a lot of Wave 7 stuff was prominent. The MC-75 is a really strong ship. I think there was a lot of MC-75s. But every single ship was used. There was no ship that didn't show up at Worlds. And that's awesome. That's really cool. And I think it's great for telling new players, that this game has so much potential. Like, you can build anything and it can be viable. Virtually anything. Somebody's going to be like, I could put together a bad list. Yeah, of course you can. But what I'm saying is, any kind of ship you want to focus on can be viable. Even raiders now. There are a few ships that are still kind of bad, but nothing's as bad as ships used to be. Like the raiders, I think, used to be really bad. The peltas used to be really bad. And I think now everything can be good. There's certain versions of certain ships that aren't all that great, like the Victory 1, which used to be pretty good, is just kind of paling in comparison to how everything else is shining. But then again, that's also room for improvement. It's still a cheap ship that can still function as a carrier. The Victory 1 isn't bad, it's just maybe one of the worst ships in the game right now. Same thing with like a Quasar 1. I'd always take a Quasar 2 over a Quasar 1. But unless of course the points were really that close. But still, none of these ships are like awful. So the game is in a really good place right now. Anything goes. There's a lot of commanders. There's a lot of different lists. And nothing feels like too overpowered right now. There's certain things that are strong, like Radis bombs can be strong. Vader, as in my opinion, is always going to be strong if you're doing a red dice heavy list. There's a lot of things that are strong, but everything is beatable. It feels like a very rock, scissors, paper kind of game where there is a lot of like there's nothing that's unbeatable. There's something to beat everything else, and it all boils down to play, and it all boils down to having fun too. And there's a lot of fun to be had even in a losing game. So this game is in a great place right now, and I have an absolute blast every time I play it, which is more than I can say for most other games. Like, I don't know if I've ever had a bad game of Armada, and that's saying a lot. And then the third thing, which you don't have to worry, is I think there's enough of a community level of support, and there's more people that are playing Armada than the numbers are really going to indicate, that even if someday this game were to not get any updates, or even go longer, maybe 2 years without updates or whatever, I have full faith that thanks to 3D printing and Mel's miniatures, there could be community expansions for Armada. And as a matter of fact, I've even been thinking about trying to develop something like that, start working on something like that myself. So there's so much possibility for the future here. I don't think anybody needs to worry at all, especially since we know stuff is coming and the game is in a good place to hold us over. Personally, I'm okay with one expansion or one wave a year. I would like for there to be news in between that, so we're not waiting a year for an announcement. Because think about when Thrawn was introduced. If they don't have something for Armada at Gen Con, then we'll be pushing back to that whole year in between announcements again, and that would be kind of a shame. What I would love is if they do a Super Star Destroyer. That might not be a wave, that might just be a standalone release, and so I would be fine with one wave a year and then one standalone something per year, whether it be a Corellian conflict style expansion, maybe an epic ship like the Executor or the Radis or something like that, or maybe some kind of space station or something that could be a standalone release that might have some goodies, or maybe even card packs. I think card packs could go a long way for this game. That'd be cool. And it would, because look at the impact that Corellian conflict had on this game. You had all these new squadrons that you could use with your existing, and it was just a cardboard expansion, but it was great. It added new objectives, changed the game a lot in a very, very good way, and it gave you an alternate way to play. So maybe an alternate way to play that's truly multiplayer, like you can support odd number of players, like maybe a 3 to 5 person free-for-all. Something that's actually been designed to run that way. I know there is a multiplayer variant on the forums, and I haven't really messed with it as much, but something that plays a little differently. I don't know though. Or maybe a cooperative, like attack the station, and there's a really, really powerful space station, and you and up to 5 friends or so have to team up and take it up. And however many players there are, the station is stronger. So if there's 5 players, the station, gains a super laser and becomes the Death Star, or something like that. I could imagine maybe a Battle of Endor style cooperative thing, but it's not I wouldn't make it the Death Star because you want to be able to have Imperial players there too. So maybe just have it like be Mega Maid, you know, so you guys are going up against Mega Maid and you know, some kind of giant station. That would be cool too. A lot of little potential for standalone releases with this game. But it's a great game, and I don't think we have anything to worry about. I don't think this coming out with a 2.0. There's so few things that I would even think could be improved with a 2.0. There's probably a few, and that's kind of worthy of some speculation as well. But the game's in a great place. We know that there's, you know, still big news ahead of us. Hopefully it's not that long in between. Hopefully I would love to see it before Gen Con. Like, especially if we're going to get something big in addition to whatever Wave 8 might be. If they'll be separate, I would love to see one announced, you know, maybe this week or next week, and then one announced at Gen Con. So now we have two things that are going to come out during the year. Maybe one comes out in time for the holidays, and then one comes out the following spring, and then we have a few months until another announcement. And so then we have, like, you know, you don't have to go more than like 4 months without something to get excited over. That would be cool because that's a good amount of time to play in between. And if it doesn't end up happening, if we have to wait a year or two in between news, then the community, I'm sure, will rise up and come up with some, you know, stuff that we test and we work together to keep things exciting. But there's plenty of possibilities for all of that stuff. But the game's in a great place, so I don't think anybody should be worried. I'm certainly not worried, and I'm not giving up because this is my favorite game, period. And you know, I think it always. I just can't really imagine anything, you know, replacing it, unless maybe they do a Star Trek version, which then getting the rights to Star Trek would be near impossible. So it would have to be something like somebody else licenses this system from FFG, but I don't think that's going to happen. So let me know what you guys think. There is still another round of the giveaway going on right now, so if you'd like to win an expansion of your choice in the form of a $20 Cool Stuff gift card, it's as simple as becoming a subscriber and leaving a comment on this or one of my videos, and you'll automatically be entered to win. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. I do appreciate all the support, guys. Don't forget to check out Crabbok.com. I'll routinely put new stuff up there. There's definitely also a great place to check out the latest erratas and guides, and if you're just looking for a forum or links to, you know, my Twitter, Facebook, Discord, all that stuff is up there as well. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.